Thank you for watching my SpaceX Starbase production site construction discussion video. Now, I was able to see an outstanding Starship launch number 3 just a couple of days ago, but I wanted to take the opportunity to tour through the production site, give you some updates on the construction and some of the activities that are going on. So without further ado, let's get into the video.
Hey everybody, it's Joe. I'm back here at Starbase. I'm going to just try to give you some updates and just discuss a little bit about what's going on over here at the production site. Spent most of the time down at the orbital launch site and of course with the launch yesterday. Today is Friday. It is the 15th of March and had a very successful Starship Flight 3 yesterday. And I was very fortunate to be able to see quite a bit of that activity, and I've tried to share as much as I could with you. Also with Ellie in Space, we were able to do that live stream during the launch, so you can check out her channel. She'll have those links, and I'll try to post some of those on the video as well if you'd like to check that out. But again, it was just a great day yesterday. But today, the day after, I just want to show you this production site area, what some of the things that are going on here, and also maybe some of the stuff that you'll be seeing in the near future here at Starbase as it continues to grow. And we'll start here. Behind me to my right is the Sanchez site, and this is where they have the ground fabrication facility. They do a lot of the fabrication of the steel parts, some of the mounts. They also have a backup generator system here, recently put in a diesel tank for those generators just in case they lose power here. Recently also they've installed power that connects over to the city, so they have utility power out here as well. So the power needs for Starbase have been greatly improved over the last year, and that's important as they continue to build out the facilities and grow, as you'll see here shortly. Now behind me is Remedios Avenue. You can see some of the Starships and also the old Booster 4, and this is where they do some of the parking and temporary staging of the Starships and the booster as they are doing work in the high bay and the mega bays. Now they also have some engine stands that they can do some installations of engines behind here. They also do some maintenance. We saw that on ship 28. They brought it back over here. They did some removal of some engines and also work up in the engine compartment where they added what I think is probably some more engine shielding. And all of the work that they did, preparation for the flight yesterday, seemed to work out really well, because ship 28 became the first Starship to not only launch and achieve orbit, but orbit about halfway around the Earth before they were coming back in. You know, it's really great to see that you know, here's the facilities where they do that work, and then how it transformed into that successful flight yesterday. Now the long tent that you see behind me is also where they do a lot of fabrication for items, everything from infrastructure, pipes. They built the orbital launch pad water deluge system plate in this facility as well. And I think this may be one of, if not the last tents that are remaining here at Starbase, because as you'll see later, they've been doing a lot of construction on the Star Factory as well. And as I pan a little more this direction, one of the things that you'll see, and it's very familiar, especially for those of you that have been watching Giga Texas, is this continuous flight auger pile that is underway. And this is preparing the ground for a multi-level parking garage that will really help with the parking situation here at Starbase. Now, again, if you've watched Giga Texas, you know that they're building one of those multi-level parking garages up at that facility too. This one will be very similar, but much smaller than what we see at Giga Texas. But the processes that they use, the continuous flight auger, and all the preparation work that is needed to make sure that the ground is ready to support that weight of that facility is underway here. They're repurposing an old parking lot for that multi-level parking garage, and that's going to basically with 6 floors gives 6 times the amount of space for parking that they used to have. So that's an important infrastructure improvement here at Starbase, very similar to what you see at Giga Texas. Also behind me you see some of these tall structures. The one closest to me is the high bay. That's the original tall structure. You can also see next to it the mega bay, and there's a mega bay 2. It's kind of being hidden right now by what we see, but these are the facilities that are tall enough to be able to stack the boosters completely, do the ship stacking, and also sometimes some of the rework that is done for those ships and boosters. It's all done in these tall facilities. You can see that rocket garden on the this side of the screen, where it's pretty convenient in case they need to clear up space in the bays. They can move them over here, and that's where a lot of that activity takes place as well. And I'll continue to pan behind me, and what you'll see on this side here is this large structure is the Star Factory that is under construction. It has been built in stages, kind of what we saw at Giga Texas as well, where the Giga Texas facility is really a number of individual structures under one common roof. In this case, this is a number of steps along the way, different phases for the building that eventually are all joined together, and it will be under one single roof. And this replaced several of the tents that we've seen over the last years for the production of the starships. They'll be doing the ring segments that are used to make the body of the starship, and also the booster. They make the nose cones. They'll do a lot of that fabrication work and all of the support brackets and other items that are welded on and become part of what would be the boosters and the starship. Now this facility is continuing to grow, has been doing that for about the last year. What you see behind me is kind of the final front face of that building, and they're adding in some of the windows and some of the exterior treatment in that site, similar to what we saw up at the Starlink facility at Bastrop, Texas, but this one's a little different as far as the color scheme and how it's going to end up looking. They do have that window line along the middle portion of the factory, but the exterior skin, at least right now, looks more black versus the white that we see up at the Bastrop facility. So let's move to a different location, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of the changes that are going on here at Starbase. Now behind me over on this direction here, you see this item. That's one of the segments for the next launch tower. Now you may have heard, but they are going to be adding 2 towers here at Starbase. The next one will look very similar to the existing one, maybe with some upgrades and changes based on what they have learned. This segment here has been built at this Sanchez site, but many of the other segments have already been built. They were built over at the Roberts Road facility in Florida at SpaceX's facility there, and they've been recently moved by barge from Florida here to Texas, and they will eventually make their way over here to the Sanchez site, where they will be in kind of a holding pattern until the orbital launch site facility, where they are preparing the ground, is completed, and they start the base of that new tower. And right now those segments have arrived. They're over at the port of Brownsville, and they are kind of being stored there. There's about I think 6 or 7 segments, and then they will eventually be moved through the road, probably by SBMTs, which are self-propelled mobile transporters, and brought to this location. They've already got most of the footings and the concrete set out that will serve as temporary bases to make sure that the tower structures are kept square and undamaged while they are on storage here behind me. But as you can tell, there's a crane next to this one segment. I think the work on assembly this one is completed, but they also have some other segments, particularly the very top of the launch tower, being put together here as well. And ultimately, when all is said and done, they'll be assembled one by one out at the orbital launch site, kind of like a large Lego. So anyway, a lot more of the work going on here, preparing for that infrastructure upgrades over at the orbital launch site. Now, one of the interesting things about this location that we're at is this item right behind me. This is a part of the Human Landing System, or HLS, variant of the Starship. This is a test item. They've had some of the prototype life support systems and other systems that would be used to support the astronauts on the moon when they do make that HLS lander, and then it goes as part of the Artemis program with the first astronauts to land back on the moon since Apollo 17 back in 1972. So it's been 52 years since we've gone back to the moon, and we still have a few more years to go until this prototype and eventually the final HLS version of the Starship is completed. Now, the development process of Starship, especially this year, is critical because the Artemis 3 program, which will be bringing the astronauts back, is currently slated to happen in September of 2026. And before that, SpaceX is on contract to do a demonstration landing, an unmanned demonstration landing on the moon, probably sometime in late 2025 or early 2026. And that needs to be successful before we put the astronauts onto the HLS lander. Now, before we even get to that point, we have to do a lot more of the successful testing of the Starship. Very similar to what we saw yesterday, SpaceX needs to continue to improve and build on the lessons that they learn. And then at some point, they need to start constructing that HLS lander. Now, we have heard recently that at least 30 particularly important milestones for the development of HLS lander have already taken place. Some of them here, some of them back at Hawthorne, California, and at other facilities that SpaceX has. And one of those is the docking mechanism that would be used between the HLS lander and the Orion capsule. And as I mentioned, this prototype that is behind me is a part of that, with the life support system, some of the electronic systems, and just testing that out as it goes. So a lot of work continues, and a lot of work remains to be finished between now and those major milestones for the Artemis 3 and overall the NASA Artemis program. So it's really great to be able to show you that some of that work is going on here right behind me. And as I turn, you can see also the high bay and that mega bay, where a lot of that construction of the production facilities and also the HLS lander will take place. I've moved a little bit closer over towards the Star Factory. This gives you a good idea of how it looks right now. I've mentioned a little bit about the architectural form that they're using with the darker skin than what we saw at the Starlink facility up at Bastrop, and also the window lines. But one of the interesting feature about the front fascia is that it actually has a curved element to it as well. And a little later in the video, I'll give you a closer look at that, but it's right over in this section of that new Star Factory. So pretty interesting. Now, if you compare this construction to Giga Texas, it's similar in that they've used the same kind of footings, they've used the same kind of column mounts, they're using similar kind of steel. The bridge cranes that they've installed are also very similar in the form and the columns as the die shop up at Giga Texas as well, and those kind of go along the front part of the facility here. Now, it's interesting that you can tell right behind me, right in this area, this is a different kind of construction that is going on near this part of the factory. Now, we're getting close to the end of the facility over here towards the mega bays, but it looks like there's a different kind of structure being put in here that may be part of either an entrance or I don't know, maybe some sort of cargo loading door at some point. But this also gives you a good view of the structure behind me, and again, that the construction techniques of using a lot of the similar steel that we see at Giga Texas, and also, as I mentioned, the bridge cranes, and you get a good sense of just the height of the building at this point. Now what you can see behind me again is the high bay and the 2 mega bays. Also, this entire area right behind me where the truck is now used to be far more open, and this is where the ring yard used to be in the olden days, and that's where they would both manufacture them and store them until they were needed for construction of either the ship or the booster. Now that is all being replaced with the new Star Factory, and you can see how it is extending out to about this location. So it's making it much more of a kind of a thin alleyway between the Star Factory and the mega bays, and this is going to be the path once they are completed that the starships and the boosters will travel right behind me. And it's a pretty good idea of how that looks right now. As I mentioned, this is kind of like Giga Texas in the sense that it's got a lot of construction all the time, and this is a really good view of just that amount of construction that is going on, even in the production site area of the Starbase. Now, keep bringing back the Giga Texas examples and analogies, but one of the biggest ones that I think is pretty impressive for both facilities is that they are doing massive production, Giga Texas vehicles here, starships and boosters, during the same time that they're having major construction. And just imagine trying to orchestrate that work, the project management, the program management that would go into keeping everything going on both production and construction at the same time. Now, I've been a program manager before, and I'll tell you that that is a pretty difficult job to do just one of those two, but to orchestrate both together is really a testament for the work that is done here to keep everything moving. And you know, you really shouldn't underestimate the amount of work that goes into that. Now, directly behind me now is that Star Factory again. This is a little bit different perspective as I've shown you. Now, in this section here, this is where you start seeing that rounded corner of the factory, and on that end of the factory they are in the process of building more foundations for what I believe is an administration building. And the shape of that building is kind of like a A shape, maybe with an atrium in the middle. And I'm wondering if that shape and this rounded corner of the Star Factory may be related in some way. Now, of course, if I could get a drone in the air, I'd be able to show you that a little bit more. Unfortunately, drones are not allowed here unless you work for SpaceX. And I do appreciate all the comments of people asking me to fly the drone here anyway, but that's really not something that I would do. It's just not... It's really not only not allowed, but SpaceX gives a lot of access here anyway. And for people who try to take advantage of that, I really wouldn't recommend it. I certainly wouldn't do that. But hopefully with these ground shots and what I'm able to show you with some of the stills, you'll get a pretty good sense of how this area looks. As we walk along the road here, I'll just give you kind of a view of those window lines that we talked about. And also at the edge of the building, you can see how it is starting to curve away. And it's only on this part of the building that you see that kind of a construction style that's differentiating from just being a large square kind of footprint. And this is also near where that new building is being constructed. That new building is considered an administration building from what I understand. So it's possible that they want this part of the factory to be tied into that architecturally. Possibly, maybe this will be one of the main entrances to the factory. So you can kind of imagine that you'd have the administration building, and that's where guests, VIPs, you know, that kind of clientele that might be coming through the area, and then they would be able to exit that building and enter the Star Factory from a more interesting main entrance. And again, that may be why they're doing it here on this end of the building. Now I've come over to this part of the Star Factory where it terminates in this particular area, but you can see there's kind of a notch in the building behind me, and that's because there's a landowner that has decided that this small piece of property that they have right here, they didn't want to sell it to SpaceX, and as a consequence, this notch that you see out of the building is a late change in the design to accommodate the fact that there's a small piece of land right behind where I am standing that doesn't belong to SpaceX. They couldn't build on it, and I'm not sure if they need an easement to it or not, which would be an access point to that land. But honestly, I can't imagine anybody but SpaceX wanting to purchase it now. And with the Star Factory redesign the way that you see it, I'm not sure if I see much of an incentive for SpaceX to offer a lot for that particular part of the site, this small little section of land. So we'll see how that works its way through the entire system. But also, as I turn a little more in this direction right behind me, and I'll try to bring the camera up a little so that you can see what's going on, but this is where that new administration building is under construction. And they've already been putting in quite a bit of the large foundation. It's kind of an A shape with the opening on this part of the building facing the Star Factory, which is another reason why I think maybe that's related to the rounded corner of the Star Factory in this area. But all of this is currently under construction, along with that multi-level garage that we saw earlier in the video. This is part of more of that logistics support and infrastructure improvement that is going on here at Starbase, and this is going to continue all the way down this road past the payload loading facility that you see in the background here. In addition to that, in this area behind me and over towards the water section, they are installing a lot more housing. Some of them are the tiny homes that I showed you being delivered on my previous video back in November. Some of them are regular construction homes that you would see on any normal kind of street here in Texas. And they also have some other kinds of housing facilities for the workers. And this is important because we take a look at all the infrastructure that is going on here. We understand that in addition to that, you're getting a lot of hires, new people coming in to work here. The payroll, the number of employees is expanding tremendously, and you have to have all the infrastructure to support that, but also you have to have things like the housing. You need to have a grocery store, which is being built down Highway 4. You need to have convenience stores. You need to have other items that help support a growing population that most of us who live in cities that are already existing kind of take for granted. But here at Starbase, they have to build all of that, and that's part of what we are seeing with all of the construction along this road, which is Highway 4. It connects to Brownville and the orbital launch site, and of course the public beach. All of this is under construction, not just because of the production for the Starship and the boosters, but also to support the growing workforce. So I hope that this view along this area of the site was helpful, and some of the things that we talked about, maybe some of the comparisons to what we're seeing at Giga Texas when it comes to some of the construction techniques that are being used, and also maybe just what the overall site is looking like and what the idea is with all of this infrastructure that they're adding. So as always, thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate you watching my channel and listening to some of the information that I do try to provide. I hope that it is value added. And as always, thank you very much for your support. I hope you have a great day. Take care.